Welcome back, everybody, to Higurashi no Nakokoro Kai. Last time was a ride. I really hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'm trying very hard not to actually scream because my neighbors might think I'm being murdered, although it's Japan, so you know. Um, I mean, I can like leave my door open and no one will ever come in, or I can forget to lock my door and no one will ever come in. But besides the point, I'm trying not to be too loud, so I'm keeping it other. But the scene last night with her getting her fingernails ripped off was actually quite a lot of fun to read and act out. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm really enjoying this because I'm not getting a lot of acting outlets, so this is like so much fun for me. So yeah, and I'm super curious as to where this goes. I'm very invested in this. I did catch a little bit of a cold, so but my voice seems to work fine, so we'll see how long I can go because I'm like very invested in this and I want to read it. So but I'm curious to see as if we're going to skip ahead to the Keiichi timeline now. I can pretty much already tell you what happened, but I'm assuming that she's going to find out that Satoshi was actually killed. Because remember in the chapter, whenever Keiichi brings up Satoshi and says run away, like she gets so angry because it's obviously probably not true. And I'm guessing that she probably figures it out. If it is true, then yay, Satoshi's fine. But I was 100% under the belief that Satoshi was the one that killed his aunt, but the way that the hag talked, I call her the hag now, the way that the hag talked, and actually let's look at that tip again because that tip confused me. Which one was it? This one? Not that one, it was after that one. It said there's something that would shock the police. Oh, smart or very lucky. Or maybe it was placed on nothing at the crime scene. But it also could be like with Keiichi. You remember how when Keiichi came back and he was like, I wasn't there. And they were all like, yes, you were. Mion probably actually took Shion's advice from the previous year, saying that she was. And then like Irie said that psychological factors, someone said it and then another person said it. And then everyone thought that they saw you, but you actually weren't there. So Keiichi wasn't crazy. They were just giving him an alibi. So that hypothesis was destroyed later on. Yeah, see, Ooishi's theory will be disproven and the police will be thrown into shock. That line right there makes me think that one of the Sonozakis killed the aunt and made it look like Satoshi was there, but then where was Satoshi if he wasn't? I mean, it seemed like in that chapter he was setting up for the murder, did it not? I mean, he seemed to be doing all the exact things that Keiichi was doing. Except more dumb and not as thorough. Like Keiichi was fucking thorough. Like he dug a hole. Granted, he lost it, but he didn't just leave her out to be found. I don't know. I think that one just confuses me. I think maybe I'm reading into that in the wrong way. Anyways, we will figure out. In any case, our last chapter, Satoshi went missing. Uh-huh. What did you just say? This is information from a reliable source. It appears they found the murder of Satoshi's aunt. It had been a few weeks since the murder. Satoshi still hadn't been found. I had no new information on his whereabouts. Kasai's report came, as a result, completely out of the blue. Does that mean the police arrested the culprit? It seems he confessed during his interrogation regarding another case. That sounded strange. See, this sounds like a setup to me. I think Satoshi really did, and this is what they were talking about. If it was Satoshi they arrested, he wouldn't have worded it that way. It sounded as though Satoshi wasn't the culprit. Kasai, who's the culprit? So it wasn't Satoshi? I swallowed those final words. I was convinced that it was Satoshi. The police and Ooishi must have thought the same way. The reason Ooishi approached me is because he was convinced that Satoshi-kun did it. Don't worry, it doesn't seem like it's Satoshi. I heard it was a lunatic who was aiming to continue the series of mysterious deaths. What? A lunatic? What do you mean? Kasai shrugged. I don't know. Since the investigation is classified as a confidential case, the information I can get is limited. Confidential? Why? To prevent the village from developing bad reputation. You don't see articles about kidnapping while the police are negotiating with the culprit, do ya? It's something similar to that. Come to think of it, I hadn't seen anything about the aunt's murder on TV or in the newspaper. These strange deaths have happened 4 years in a row now, on the day of the Wanagashi. There are those who try to make light of it, and now this lunatic who confessed to the aunt's murder said he did it in imitation of a series of mysterious deaths? Kasai didn't know anything else, so instead of probing him further, I reviewed the information myself. I was really shocked to learn all this. I was convinced that Satoshi-kun killed her. I thought that was the reason he had to disappear. But it was actually some lunatic who killed her, and he had no relation to the aunt whatsoever. So Satoshi had nothing to do with the murder? If so, why did he disappear? I couldn't accept that this lunatic had killed the aunt. And what's really strange is the phrase Kasai used. 4 years in a row now. After all, I'd been thinking that this murder happened because Satoshi had been in dire situation, and had nothing to do with the series of mysterious deaths. I felt as though Satoshi-kun's case had become somebody else's. This series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa is also known as the Curse of Oyashiro-sama. Satoshi's case has become one of those mysterious deaths. In other words, Satoshi's case had become a part of Oyashiro-sama's curse. I didn't like the way that sounded, because it was as though the curse had swallowed Satoshi. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to confirm the tip that Satoshi took train to Tokyo. We don't know whether or not he's in the prefecture, to be honest. Ooishi broke the seal on a new can of instant coffee. I thought you knew his whereabouts already, since you seemed very convinced he was the culprit. Oh, that was him. Huh, you got me. Ooishi chuckled and poured a cup of coffee which looked far too hot. You have some good sources, huh? It's a highly classified case, but you already have this information. I wonder who leaked it. Looks like we need to review our security precautions. Ooishi smirked. Seemed he knew why I was here today. I'm one of the Sonozakis after all, and my ears are open. I smirked back at him. It's all about bluffing. Anyway, since we're friends now, why don't we have a chat? Oh, wrong person. Let me ask you first, who's this real culprit? I heard he was a lunatic, but what does that mean? I don't know how to answer that question. I want to know the answer myself. Really, I was convinced Satoshi was the real culprit. It was rather surprising for me, too. Moishi threw himself on the sofa and crossed his hands behind his head. He looked up at the ceiling and smiled wryly. I suddenly received a call from the prefectural police the other day. They said that one of the guys in detention confessed to the murder of the housewife. Who is it? He's a crazy dopehead. He's been in and out of prison for drug abuse. His statement says that he was interested in the series of mysterious deaths and wanted to imitate them. Are you sure he's the real culprit? I didn't interrogate him myself, but the prefectural police tells me that he has information that the only real culprit would know. He seems to have thrown the murder weapon into the Ooishi River. Hey, I live in OG. I don't like that. They're searching for it right now. If it's found, his statement will be solid. Now, I just want to point out right now that the Sonozaki seem to know everything at all times. So, of course, if Satoshi did this, they would be able to know that, right? And I was thinking before I said this, why would they would want to do that? It's because, like, wouldn't they want him to seem like the culprit because they want to seem like he ran away? But maybe it's also so Shion doesn't go looking for him. I don't know. Even if the weapon wasn't found, would the case be closed? Probably. His statement clearly outlines the state of the crime scene and the body. This information, like I said, covers details that only the actual murderer would know. You don't seem quite convinced. Oishi's still looking up at the ceiling, went quiet. As a matter of fact, the dopehead was already dead by the time I got their call. Dead? You know those spoons that are forked at the tip? They use those at the detention facility. I was told he swallowed one and choked on it. They couldn't tell if it was suicide or caused by some mental disorder. I imagine somebody swallowing that spoon and gagged. So the investigation hadn't been done that thoroughly. But although I'm not convinced, my superiors are. Or maybe it's to get the police to stop looking for Satoshi. I think with that, the case will be closed. Oishi turned his eyes from the ceiling to me. He looked serious. This is just what I personally feel, okay? So keep it between the two of us. I believe that this lunatic is some kind of mistake. It might be some big misunderstanding caused by a chain of coincidences or, you know. I have no idea what you're talking about. I still believe the real culprit is Hojo Satoshi. You sound confident. Unfortunately, we can't find anything to prove he was at the crime scene. We obtained a warrant to search his house after he disappeared, but we still found nothing. But you still believe he did it? Yep. I wonder how you can be so sure, even though you have no evidence. It's incredible. Is that supposed to be like the hunch of an experienced detective? Yep. It's the hunch of the guy who's been in this business for several decades. I mean, Shion's so sure and there's no evidence. Well, she smiled in satisfaction, but it didn't feel relieved. Where did he go? His disappearance convinced me he was the culprit. If he wasn't the culprit, there'd be no real reason for him to disappear. What if the murder actually was done by that lunatic and Satoshi's disappearance has nothing to do with it? In other words, what if Satoshi disappeared because the Sonozakis didn't like my relationship with them, and he has nothing to do with the murder? Was Satoshi a culprit or a victim? I think both. The reason for his disappearance had become unclear. I don't think they bother to make one person disappear just because of an undesirable relationship. What do you hear from inside the Sonozaki family? Do you know anything? I wouldn't be here if I did. You're right. Ooishi laughed out loud while scratching his head. And after he stopped laughing, he leaned over. All right, how about this? Why don't we make a deal? A gentleman's deal. A deal? On what? On information about Satoshi's disappearance. If you find any information like that, you tell me, and I'll also provide you with any if I find any. Do we have a deal? That sounds too convenient for you. Ooishi chuckled. Shion, I think if we leave things as they were, they'll conclude that the lunatic committed the murder. If that happens, Satoshi's disappearance will be treated just as another runaway minor. They won't search for him as actively as before. But I will continue searching for him. Only I will do it. I believe you're intended to do the same. Our motives are different, though. I just want to know he's safe, but you'd like to arrest him, wouldn't you? If the murder case was considered solved, Satoshi would be free, regardless of his innocence. I doubt that. Ooishi chuckled again, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Well, let's be friends from now on. The enemy of your enemy is your friend, no? I'm not opposed to the Sonozaki family, though. Really? Oh, really? I'm sorry, then. How is she not opposed to them? I really don't understand that, unless she's just, like, brainwashed. I really don't understand this girl. Her fucking grandma ripped her fingers off and probably murdered her boyfriend, and she's okay with the family. Also, they wanted to murder him. How can you be okay with that? Or murder her when she was a baby? How the fuck can you be okay with that? Yeah, sure, you might like your sister, but... As Sis and Kasai said, I wouldn't want him as my enemy or my ally, because both would be too risky. I probably shouldn't let my guard down in front of this big fat weasel. I sipped on the coffee to fill up the silence, though I wasn't very thirsty. Outside the window, I could see normal life taking its course. But Satoshi wasn't there. He should have been there, but he wasn't. I was scared I might grow used to his absence someday. Where was he? I wonder how he's doing. I hope he's alright. I know you think he might be dead. Don't patronize me. Do you know what people are calling his disappearance in Hinamizawa? Huh? They say he was demoned away. To be demoned away means the same thing as being spirited away. It's part of the local dialect. He was kidnapped and taken to hell through the bottom of the Onagafuji swamp. That's ridiculous. Wrong person. Anyway, the series of mysterious deaths has struck for the 4th time. It's too soon, but people are already talking about next year. Are you saying the murder was a result of the Oyashiro-sama's curse? The victim was one of the Hojos, after all. She was involved in the dam conflict, though indirectly. Really, it's not surprising that some people take an interest in incidents because they do always happen on the day of the Meakashi. So there's one thing that I'm curious about. Rika was able to predict the aunt, but she wasn't able to predict Satoshi, which means that it makes me believe that the same culprit is behind all the ones that she is able to predict. I don't know. Unless Satoshi's really not dead, which I really don't believe that. Especially not after the scene. That's ridiculous, too. Oyashiro-sama's curse. Though I said that, I couldn't quite wipe away the fear from my mind. Why did he disappear? Was it the Sonozaki family? Did he run away from the police? Did he really kill his aunt in the first place? Why did he disappear? He's on his own. Oyashiro-sama's curse has nothing to do with it. But... Huh? That's strange. Satoshi and Oyashiro-sama's curse. Somebody once mentioned those two together before. Reina. When did I hear that? That's right. That rainy day. It was Ryugu Reina who told me that they were taking shelter in that shack. I remembered that creepy story she told me at that time. Satoshi wants to meet the Hinamizawa and run far away. Even if only unconsciously. That's what Ryugu Reina said. Reina had definitely pointed out that Satoshi wanted to leave Hinamizawa at that time. She also said, everything he's going through is a sign of Oyashiro-sama's curse. She said that for sure. She had definitely mentioned Oyashiro-sama's curse. The series of mysterious deaths has struck 4 times. Was Satoshi being controlled by the curse? Is that why he killed his aunt and was demoned away? No, that can't be true. Satoshi's smile faded from my mind. Satoshi disappeared. Not only that, the reason for his disappearance also disappeared. It must have been done by a human being. I can't accept he was demoned away. I wonder if she's gonna actually figure it out, if we're gonna go to the future. Or present, I guess. I moved from one chair to another because the conditioning was too cold. I moved with my notebook, my pen case, with a bunch of keychains, and my cup of milk tea. I did it all in one go. I sat in a new chair, then opened my notebook again. I scribbled my thoughts and sank into silence. The series of mysterious deaths, dubbed the Curse of Oyashiro-sama. I've been viewing each incident as a separate case, even though it was followed by another one. I've never looked at all the cases as one big scheme. After I wrote down all the incidents on paper, it became clear to me all of them served the same agenda. I wrote down the victims. The first year, the construction site manager. The second year, Satoshi's parents. The third year, the priest. The fourth year, Satoshi's aunt. For the fourth year, one could consider Satoshi himself to be the victim rather than his aunt. If I considered that each case arose from the grudge over the dam conflict, it's quite simple. In the first year, the construction manager was killed because he was a symbol of the dam construction itself. Of course, the real enemy was the Minister of Construction, but it wasn't as clear a target. The manager, on the other hand, had been aggressively shouting back at the villagers, so he was more an appropriate enemy to attack. If Oyashiro-sama had really cursed someone, it would have been the officials from the ministry. It's apparent the target was selected because of the villagers' preferences. The second year, the accidental death of Satoshi's parents. It said they fell from some cliff in a park, but it's doubtful it was really an accident. His parents were labeled as traitors to the village because they sided with the dam construction, even though they were also from Hinamizawa. The Hojo family was ostracized during the dam conflict in order to prevent further pro-dam activists from rising up. That means that the Hojos were necessary during the conflict to play the role of the traitor. So when the conflict was over, they no longer served any purpose. The construction site manager was a symbol of the external enemy. The Hojos a symbol of the internal enemy. Those people fell victim to the curse, and it seemed that the grudge over the dam conflict had ended. Yet, those incidents were followed by another one. The third year, The leader of one of the three families, the priest Furude, suddenly died of an illness with an unknown cause. His wife drowned herself on the same night. She seemed to have left a note that she was sacrificing herself to pacify Oyoshiro-sama's anger. Whether it was fatal disease or suicide, their deaths looked suspicious. Mion admitted that the Sonozaki family didn't like the priest's attitude. They didn't like how the priest had been generous towards the pro-dam activists. The priest wasn't quite a traitor, but he was certainly uncooperative. Looking at these incidents, I realized that the curse was performed based on the degree of hostility: enemy, traitor, and dissident. This means that the curse was actually payment. It was a punishment for the criminals of war. And the fourth year? I didn't understand this case at first, to be honest. At first, I believed this case was separate from the other ones, even though it occurred on the same day. I never thought there would be any relation to the other three. But when I wrote it down and looked at it objectively, the victim is a relative of a traitor. After enemy, traitor, dissident, relative of a traitor doesn't sound too odd. It comes naturally as a fourth target. On the day the villagers worship Oyoshiro-sama, their guardian deity, the criminals of the dam conflict, had been punished by the curse. Just like how I was forced to pay at the Sonozaki's house, the criminals were made to pay as well. After writing these things out, I started thinking the fourth incident might be in line with the series of mysterious deaths after all. Whether it was Satoshi or the dope head, it seemed that they were forced to play the role of a murderer as a part of a bigger scenario. Even if Satoshi was the real culprit, even if he killed his aunt because of an ordinary grudge, the murder seems to synchronize with the grand scheme of the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa, which is a payment plan for the war criminals. The hag, I don't know, I'm gonna call her the hag from now on. The hag also clearly mentioned Satoshi. So, like, if somebody was, like, urging him on, maybe Mion, the murder was a result of his pain. But what if somebody planned that as part of a scenario? For instance, somebody might have suggested him to kill his aunt on that day, that night, at that place. I had no doubts that Satoshi decided to kill her in order to protect Satoko. But did he really reach that conclusion on his own? Satoshi was optimistic and somewhat detached, as far as I know. Would he really have considered murdering his aunt, even if it was to protect his sister? Couldn't it be possible for someone to have chosen the aunt as the fourth year's murder beforehand? And they used Satoshi? And Satoshi was eliminated because of his connection? Looking at it that way, the murder of the first year resembles this case. The main culprit behind that case hasn't been found yet, dead or alive. The other culprits testified that their fight had turned into a slaughter. But wouldn't it be possible that the main culprit had manipulated the situation? What if he had been told to kill someone on that day, at that time, and in that place? I'm certain. The first murder resembles Satoshi's case so much. So did that mean Satoshi was being controlled by somebody else? Or she had presented me with a hypothesis the Sonozaki family made Satoshi disappear in order to end my relationship with a murderer. But when I read the notes I wrote down, his disappearance didn't seem too spontaneous. It seemed like part of a bigger plan. Since I'd unexpectedly got involved in that plan, I had to be separated from him. Then Satoshi was demoned away, as planned. At first, I also believed the Sonozaki family made him disappear because they didn't like that I was in love with a member of a family of traitors. But something didn't add up. Something felt strange. I wasn't the reason for his disappearance after all. Even if I never met him, Satoshi was supposed to kill his aunt in June 1982 and then disappear. At one point, I had been thinking of taking revenge on the hag. I'd believe she separated us, but what if my relation with Satoshi had nothing to do with his disappearance? What would that mean? Who made Satoshi disappear? I need to understand the series of mysterious deaths in order to solve this mystery. What did all these deaths mean? Who was behind them? What purpose did they serve? I wanted to know the purpose, the motive, and who was responsible. Who took Satoshi? I wanted to know if he was alive. The series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa, Oyashiro-sama's curse. What is that curse? Specifically, what kind of god is Oyashiro-sama? What blessings does he bring, and what punishments does he dole out? I wrote down my thoughts in the notebook. What's Oyashiro-sama? What is he? I scribbled these things down. I was so absorbed that I didn't realize someone had been standing behind me, watching me the whole time. I couldn't stop myself from gasping when I realized that. I knew it! So I'm pretty sure she's the one who kills Rika in the last book. I'm sorry. Did I startle you? The intelligent-looking woman giggled. No, I was just a bit surprised. Sorry about that. She could have apologized a little better, too, since she'd been watching me from behind. But she just stared at my face instead. Are you Shion Sonozaki? You must know sis if you know my name, but I don't know who you are. Being twins is a pain sometimes. People you've never met before can tell exactly who you are. I'm sorry. The Sonozakis I know would never be seen in a library, so I assume you were her twin sister. The woman giggled again. Well, you were right. I am Shion Sonozaki. Nice to meet you. May I ask your name? Oh, I'm sorry. I should have introduced myself first. She seemed to love her own hair because she kept running her fingers through it boastfully. I'm Mio Takano. You can call me Mio Shion-chan. Nice to meet you, Takano-san. Her condescending attitude bugged me. I hate meeting people like that. I closed my notebook and got ready to leave the desk. Oh, are you upset? Thank you for your concern. I like to be alone when I'm thinking, so I'm moving to another spot. Excuse me. That's a shame. I thought we'd be good friends. Did you? I don't think so. I finally met someone with the same passion, a fellow researcher of Oyashiro-sama's curse. I think it's quite unusual to meet someone like that. She saw my notes. My face reddened. So the reason I think it's Takano is because she's, like, obsessed with the Oyashiro-sama's curse. There's, like, notes, and she's, like, working. I think she's, like, working for something. And so if she found out that Rika was Oyashiro, I 100% believe that she would kill her to, like, even just to, like, test it. I did have some proof, but it's been a while since I read those notes. But when you read through this, once again, I'll say, make sure to read the tips at the end of the chapters, because that's where you find a lot of the information. And the thing that I read that made me think it was Takano was in some of those tips. It was like her diary or like her journal or something. I can't exactly remember, but like it was like she worked for like some sort of government thing. I can't entirely remember when she was researching it. And also how, like, into it she is and creepy and weird. And she definitely killed, we know for a fact she killed the photographer because she picked up Keiichi that night when he killed the uncle, and the photographer's bike was in the back seat of her car. And it was like they both knew. These are just theories. It's all nonsense. Just childish scribbles. The series of mysterious deaths, also known as Ooishi-Osama's curse. Though each death is an independent incident, all of them clearly share the same purpose. Each year, someone dies of the curse and someone else is sacrificed and disappears. But what? What are you saying all of a sudden? Someone dies and else... What? I was taken aback by her weird spiel. But I realized right away that she'd said something extraordinary. Didn't you notice the number of victims is always even? Haven't you realized that yet? The number of victims is always even? I was confused, but I tried to figure out what that meant. The dam construction site manager died in the first year. There was only one victim. In the second year, the victims were the parents of the Satoshi, so it was 2. In the third, it was the priest, and if her death was also planned, his wife. And in this year, Satoshi's aunt and Satoshi went missing. If Satoshi's disappearance was planned, the number of victims was 2. It's true. Except for the first one, the victims always came in an even number. 2. Wait. I had just concluded myself the first case resembled the fourth one. The main culprit was still missing. He might have been demoned away just like Satoshi. See? Doesn't it make sense now? Takano sounded like a teacher who had just showed me how to solve a difficult math problem. I wasn't quite convinced, but I couldn't deny what she said either. Did I give you enough hints? I really would have enjoyed a conversation with you, but I think you prefer being alone. I'm sorry I wasn't respectful, Mio-san. Please, call me Shion. She seemed content I changed my attitude. She kept giggling for a while. She didn't seem very reliable. I didn't want to be acquainted with her for too long, but I don't get to talk to people very much, and what she said interests me. Let me introduce myself again. I'm Mio Takano. Call me Mio. Pleased to meet you, Mio-san. I'm Shion Sonozaki, Mion's twin sister. Please call me Shion. I took the hand that Mio held out as a sign of reconciliation. Please tell me more. You said there's always 2? One dies due to the curse and one other is a sacrifice? Shion, before we get into that, could you tell me why you became interested in this? She leaned over and looked into my eyes. It was kind of uncomfortable. Mio, how much do you know about me? I guess you have an idea if you know my name. Well, I don't know much, just that you recently returned from boarding school. I see. So I think you can imagine that I want to know about the series of mysterious deaths that happened while I was away. I'm just curious. I see. You're curious, I got the impression she knew about what happened to Satoshi and me, because she instantly recognized me as Shion, not Mion. I didn't know why I thought that way, as she shouldn't have access to sources for that. For instance, or she does. It was just the look in her eyes that made me think that way. Let me ask you a question this time. You called me a fellow researcher of Ooishi-Osama's curse, didn't you? So why are you researching the curse? You also stated that there's an even number of deaths. It's true, Hinamizawa's mysterious deaths are often called Ooishi-Osama's curse. But why would you delve into the mysterious deaths if you're researching the curse itself? Shion, you're asking way too many questions at once. I can't tell what you really want to know. Ooh, I couldn't say anything in return. Maybe I'd been too inquisitive. I'll answer your questions one by one. I'm not just researching the curse, as my subject is much broader than that. I'm researching the history of Onigafuchi Village. In plain terms, I'm researching the dark and ancient history of Hinamizawa. Onigafuchi Village? Isn't Onigafuchi the bottomless swamp some people believe is connected to hell? And what dark history? I kept asking questions. Mio, however, looked pleased to hear them. Onigafuchi is the old name for Hinamizawa, as it was known back before the Meiji area. About the dark history, you know a little bit about the man-eating demons, I assume. Ah, the man-eating demons, huh? That was a fairy tale told in Hinamizawa. A long time ago, demons came out of the swamp, and while the villagers battled with them, they ended up living peacefully together. The villagers transcended and became a sacred people having demon blood in their veins. That long-forgotten fairy tale came back to my mind vividly. You know this story because you're a villager, of course, but what about the story of the cannibal banquet? Huh? What's that? You know the villagers have the blood of man-eating demons in their veins, don't you? Well, yes, I think I've heard of it. I dodged the question. Hinamizawa used to be a desolate village, but it grew in prominence after the Second World War and expanded its influence to Okonomiya and other areas. The people who disliked and discriminated against the villagers called us man-eating demons. I remember that. The young villagers don't take it seriously, but the older people can get really upset about it. They certainly can't take it as a joke. So the term man-eating demons is forbidden. We normally never use it. Even during my rebellious phase, I never spoke those words. Mio, however, seemed to have no qualms with saying it out loud. Are you upset? About what? I know people hate that phrase in Hinamizawa. I apologize if I made you feel uncomfortable. The old people wouldn't like it, but I'm fine. Would you continue? Thanks. Okay, so the ancient villagers had a custom of cannibalism. They ritualized this custom and held various ceremonies based around it. The festival we hold in June isn't just an early summer festival. It used to be a banquet in which the villagers chased after a sacrifice and ate them. They bound their sacrifice to a table, gutted them, and dumped the organs into a river. Wada can mean cotton, but it also means organs. That's the root of the word Watanagashi. And I actually know that kanji. Organ drifting, Watanagashi. I believe they started using futon mats to cover it up around the Meiji area, according to my research. They wouldn't be able to do that openly nowadays. Everything Mia was talking about sounded startling. I was just taken aback. I couldn't wholly believe it right away. She sensed that from my expression. It's not a hoax. I didn't make any of this up. If you promise not to tell anyone, I can show you my notes on the Watanagashi. Mion took her note out of her backpack and flipped through it. She appeared to be doing her research thoroughly. Thank you. I'd love to read it. Sure. I'd like to keep it confidential. But I guess I should share it with my fellow researcher. Mio handed me the notebook a bit hesitantly. It looked like it'd take a whole night to finish reading. It was densely packed with information. I saw copies of various documents and quotes in there too. It wasn't just some delusion of hers. You told me that one person dies because of the curse and another is sacrificed, right? A person is sacrificed and disappears. Satoshi had gone missing. Did he become a sacrifice? What is a sacrifice anyway? Mio looked pleased to hear my questions. She took out another notebook and handed it to me. I think you'll understand when you read it, but I'll give you a digest version. Oyashiro-sama's curse is simply Oyashiro-sama's anger. In other words, the curse is caused by Oyashiro-sama's anger. Do you follow? Yes. You're saying that Oyashiro-sama was mad at the people who opposed the village during the dam conflict. And that's why the curse occurred? That's right. Oyashiro's anger has to be pacified. If not, something even worse will occur. So all the successive priests at the Furude shrine had to perform a sacrifice every time the curse struck in order to pacify Oyashiro-sama. It's called a sacrificial ritual. So each year, on the day of the Wanadagashi, one person dies because of the curse and another is sacrificed to pacify his anger? But only one person is actually murdered each time. I've never heard of human sacrifices being made. Naturally, there's no body. The ritual of sacrifice requires the offering to be sunk into Onigafuji swamp. That swamp is bottomless, and no one would ever surface once they were thrown in there. No body would ever be found, of course. So one of the victims is always thrown into the swamp every year? Does that mean Satoshi is also at the bottom of that dark green swamp? I don't know. I'm not sure if they really throw them in the swamp. But those who make these incidents happen must be eliminating one person based on that legend. Each year, a traitor to the village dies on the day of the Wanadagashi because of Oyashiro-sama's curse. And another is sacrificed in order to pacify his anger. That person's body will never be found, because he or she is supposedly thrown into the bottomless swamp. Yep, you get it! The series of mysterious deaths always involves both a curse and sacrifice. It's a system that allows 2 traitors to die every year. What I'm telling you now probably isn't sufficient, so it might be hard to grasp. Instead, I want you to take the time, read my notes. You'll see what I'm telling you isn't far from the truth at all. I heard a man's voice just then. A middle-aged man with a hat was waving at Mio from the entrance. Sorry, I think I gotta go. I wanted to talk to you more, but I guess we'll have another chance to chat. I'll leave those notes to you. I'm looking forward to hearing your opinions. Oh, I'm so interested to read her notes to see if my theory about her is correct. Mio wrapped up the conversation and headed to where the man was waiting for her. She left her old notebooks in my hands. Mio waved at me as she left the library with her companion. I took a seat again and opened what she'd given me. What bugged me was the series of mysterious deaths, also known as Oyashiro-sama's curse. Maybe I'd be able to get closer to the truth by reading these notebooks. If I studied them carefully, I might be able to find out who was really behind these incidents. Why did Satoshi have to disappear? What was he involved in? How did it happen? Maybe Takano's notes would bring me the answer. Research notes, Mio Takano. I started flipping the pages, this time making sure that no one was watching over my shoulder. Oh, it's not going to tell me? It was time for the library to close. I had to leave. I bought some food on my way home. I shut my door and locked it right away. Then I heard the door of the neighboring apartment open. Kasai lived next door. Nobody else lived on this floor of the nearly empty apartment building anyway. I clearly heard the door open and close. Kasai must have noticed that I came home and was coming over because he wanted to talk to me. I unlocked the door and shouted to him, "Is that you, Kasai? I'll leave the door unlocked for you." "I'm not Kasai, Shion." That voice, I twitched. "Can I come in?" "Sure." "Oh, wrong person, sis." The door slowly opened. My alter ego, Mion Sonozaki, appeared. She was holding a box of cake. While smiling timidly, "Are you going to keep standing there until I escort you? Come in." Sorry, this room doesn't look very cute. It looks comfortable. She looked a bit tense when entering my room. It was her first time here. How's life? My new school is as boring as I thought it would be. I usually go, but I skip classes when I don't feel up to it. I couldn't do that when I was going to St. Lucia's. So St. Lucia's was really tough, huh? You should go there sometime. Sorry. Look, I brought cake. Let's eat. Mion opened the box. I saw 2 cheesecakes in there. We have the same taste in food, so we don't have to fight if the 2 get the same thing. I chatted with her over the cheesecake. I talked to her about school and whatnot. If you need furniture, tell me. I might be able to get some for you. I finally got used to this room, but I might move out soon, so furniture won't be necessary. Thanks, though. Dad wants me to come back home. I don't want to live with him, but he sounds desperate. He'd be pleased if you came home. He looked lonely while you were gone. You can only say that because you don't have to live with him. Come to think of it, this was the first time I'd talked to Sis since I was allowed to live as Shion. She didn't look like how she was at the Sonozaki house that day. The successor of the Sonozaki family and my twin sister are 2 different people. The demon lives inside the leader of the Sonozakis. Our bodies are exactly the same, except for the tattoo of a demon on her back. Mion's destiny as the successor was set in stone when she got that tattoo. It's pretty simple. The Mion from that night was different from the Mion before me. When I forced a tear of my fingernails, I'd momentarily despised her. But if I were the next leader of the family, I'd have done the same. Shion, how are your fingernails? The wounds have closed. I don't bandage them anymore because it looks too conspicuous. But my nails still look ugly, so I really don't like showing them to people. I sneered at her, displaying my incomplete fingernails. Mion grew quiet and looked down. You don't have to apologize. You did what you had to do. You just played the role of the successor. I'm not holding any grudges. I'm sorry. Okay, apology accepted, but if you apologize one more time, then it'll be canceled. I won't forgive you for the rest of my life. Huh? What do you mean? Once you start apologizing, you never stop, so I'm cutting you off. Will you really forgive me about Satoshi as well? My heart ached when she mentioned his name. It felt just like the ache of an old wound. I figured you loved him. No wonder. I shouted out loud in front of all of you. I'm not embarrassed anymore. Granny truly believes you have atoned. She thinks you've done all you needed to do, so the matter's finished. That's good. My pain won't go to waste then. I wonder where Satoshi disappeared to, though. Oh. I started choking when I heard her say that. I just said it to her myself. I said I'd forgiven her completely, but that promise instantly evaporated. Just because of what she said, I felt like I'd turned into a completely different person. What did you just say, Mion? Did you just say I wonder where Satoshi disappeared? Who else could know other than you and your folks? What did you say? Where did he go? I felt my eyeballs reddening in anger. It felt as though they were about to pop. I choked on a burning sensation in my throat. Mion's expression rapidly changed. It looked like she noticed the devil's mask on my face. We were one and the same. We could understand each other's thoughts without voicing them. So showing our expressions was like unveiling everything in our hearts to another. Sorry. Even though I told her not to apologize anymore, Mion apologized. I felt like strangling her. I was going to make her confess where she hid him. If she told me she threw him into the Onigafuji swamp, I would strangle her to death right then and there. I really don't know what happened to him. That's a lie. It's true. Granny doesn't know anything either. Please believe me. That's a lie. Are you saying Oyashiro-sama's curse demoned him away? There can't be a curse. There can't be. Words kept coming out of my mouth, like I was chanting a spell. I wasn't speaking by my own will anymore. It was the demon who was controlling me. That demon that had been sleeping inside me woke up and was speaking through my mouth. My hands, the demon's hands, grabbed Mion by the neck. You guys demoned Satoshi away. You and the Sonozaki family. Give him back! Give him back! My hands slowly but surely squeezed Mion's neck. Mion put her hands onto mine. I looked at her fingers. 3 of the fingernails on her left hand looked as ugly as mine. Mion? What's this? Tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't have to answer. She had the same scars I did. She atoned as well. The way those wounds were healing looked the same as mine. So, did she get those runes around the same time I did? It was unfair that only you had to go through that. I felt so bad. Mion started sobbing. I stood there, petrified, still wringing Mion's neck. Since I found out you love Satoshi, I wanted you to be happy, because it's always you who has to suffer, even though we're twins. It didn't come as a surprise to me that Mion might have also loved Satoshi as I did. We've always liked the same stuff, even the same people. She was stupid enough to feel obligated towards someone like me. I told Granny to leave you and Satoshi alone. I shouted at her. Then she said she'd let you be if I atoned with sincerity. And you did. So you were supposed to live happily with him. But Satoshi's gone away. That's terrible. Mion isn't smart enough to shed crocodile tears. Those tears were real. Her tears dissolved my demon's anger like how the sun melts ice. Believe me, Shion, I really don't know why. Neither Granny nor the Sonozaki have anything to do with it. Granny forgave you, so she would never do anything to him. Mion, I'm so sorry. Did I hurt you? I took my hands off her neck and held her instead. I'm not hurt. You've been hurt a lot more than me, haven't you? I shouted at the demon in my mind. See, and this is proving the fact that the demon at the end that she was talking about, Shion. I believed in Mion. I had been convinced it was the Sonozaki family that made Satoshi disappear, but Mion denied it while shedding tears. Between her and me, her tears are more convincing than any words, so I'd believe her. It absolutely wasn't the Sonozaki family that made him disappear. So, do you really think that Satoshi disappeared because of Oyashiro-sama's curse? I don't believe in curses, and Mion didn't do it. I'm guessing this is a demon in her mind. If it wasn't the curse or the Sonozaki family who demoned him away, I don't know. I just know it's not Mion. It's not the Sonozaki family because Mion says so. That stupid Shion. Are you going to ignore Satoshi's voice? I know. You don't have to remind me, demon. I can hear his voice. I know he's mumbling with a ambivalent expression like he always used to, even though he knows help won't come. I'll help him no matter what. I'll save him if he's alive. I'll avenge him if he's dead. But Mion didn't do it. You just want to take it out on somebody. It doesn't matter who. But I'm Shion, not a demon. You're only part of me. Don't try to take control. Fuck off. Don't ever show up again. The demon faded away. My body went limp, and I fell to the floor while holding Mion. Shion, are you alright? I'm alright now, Mion. Why are we two different individuals? Why can't we just be one? Stop it. We've always asked ourselves that so many times, but there's no answer. I'm Shion and you're Mion. That's just how it is. I don't care if I'm Mion or Shion. I just want to be one and equal with you. There's nothing we can do. You have the demon on your back. You're destined to become the successor, and we can't change that. I don't want it. I don't need a demon. I don't want it. I'm not a demon. I'm not. I want to be a human like you. Mion is a demon. It's actually opposite, and we did get a bit of information that said that Shion was actually the one that came out first. So Shion actually is the demon, which makes a lot of sense. And Shion is a human. Even though we're twins, there's a difference between us. Was it impossible for humans to live with demons after all? It should be possible, because they did it before. That's the legend of Hinamizawa. Humans and demons lived in harmony together, as Ooishi-sama watched over them. Mion, Shion, Satoshi, demons, humans, Ooishi-sama's curse, the series of mysterious deaths, Satoshi's disappearance. We fell asleep while holding each other, while holding everything. Ooh, yay! Finally we get to read the notes, I'm thinking.